Señoras y señores,
Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, a very good morning to you all. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for the trust you've placed in Telefónica, and which is evident from your presence here today in this general shareholders meeting at Telefónica. Let's begin the meeting. I hereby inform all attendees that pursuant to the Capital Companies Law in Spain, the Board of Directors has requested that the notary of the Illustrious Association of Public Notaries of Madrid, Mr. José Miguel García Lombardia, be present to sign the minutes of this meeting. Mr. García Lombardia is sitting at one of the tables at this side of the room on your left. The Secretary takes the floor. Good morning. Complying with legal formalities, we hereby state in Madrid for the record that on the 7th of June 2019 at 11 a.m. at Recintos Feriales of IFEMA, Feria de Madrid of the Campo de las Naciones, Parque Ferial Juan Carlos I, Pabellón 12, the presiding committee of the annual general shareholders meeting of Telefónica, Sociedad Anónima, meets on the second call, which was called on the 24th of April 2019 by resolution of the Board of Directors by means of a significant event published on the same day on the website of the National Securities Market Commission and on the company's website, www.telefonica.com, and by notices published on the 26th of April 2019 in the newspapers El País and Expansión, setting out all the matters submitted to the shareholders for approval at this meeting. The presiding committee of the general shareholders meeting is made up of Mr. José María Álvarez Payete López, chairman of the meeting in his capacity as chairman of the board of directors, and myself, Mr. Pablo de Carvajal González, secretary to the meeting in my capacity as secretary to the board of directors, both of whom continue in office as recorded in the commercial registry and of the directors of the company attending the meeting. As regards the quorum for this meeting, the process of registration and computation of attendance cards and proxies was temporarily closed a few minutes ago, allowing us to determine that the meeting is quorate to hold the general shareholders meeting on second call, which can therefore begin. However, attendance cards and proxies will continue to be accepted until the deadline established in the regulations of the general shareholders meeting, i.e., until the commencement of the shareholders' presentation period. The provisional information on shareholders' attendance is as follows: 4,309 shareholders present, holders of 52,171,718 shares. 41,875 shareholders represented by proxy holding 2,783,462,452 shares. In total, 46,184 shareholders attend the meeting, holders of 2,835,634,170 shares, representing 54.61% of the share capital of the company Telefónica S.A. The share capital of the company is set out at €5,192,131,686, represented by the same number of shares. The quorum required for the general shareholders meeting to be validly established on second call and for discussion of the matters included on the agenda is thus present. In the view of the information provided by the Secretary, I hereby declare valid quorum to exist for this annual shareholders meeting on second call. The notary takes the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, shareholders, in compliance with the provisions of commercial law, I hereby ask the shareholders present at the meeting whether they have any reservations or protests with respect to the statements regarding the number of shareholders attending the meeting and the share capital present and represented by proxy. There are no reservations. There being no objections of any kind to the matter raised by the notary, I confirm that the general shareholders meeting of Telefónica Sociedad Anónima is validly established on second call in order for the shareholders to discuss and decide all the matters included on the agenda. The Secretary takes the floor once more. I ask those shareholders who have made any reservations or protests without prejudice to the recommendation of notary. I confirm that the general shareholders meeting of Telefónica Sociedad is validly established. So, to order the development of the board, the shareholders who wish to speak request such information or clarifications as they deem appropriate on the matters included on the agenda, on the information accessible to the public provided by the company to the National Securities Market Commission since the last general meeting held on the 8th June 2018, or of the auditor's report or the proposals for resolutions that are legally appropriate, may address themselves to the shareholder attention table located on the left-hand side of this room. At this desk, their identity and number of shares represented or held by them will be verified. Subsequently, the presiding committee of the general shareholders meeting will then establish the order in which they are to speak. The resolutions proposed for your approval by the Board of Directors are those included in the documentation distributed to you at the entrance of the room where this meeting is held, and which has been made available to you since the date of the call to the meeting, both at the company's website and at its registered office. The other documentation about which the general meeting of shareholders must be informed is as follows. Firstly, we inform you about the company's annual corporate governance report for fiscal year 2018. Which has been prepared in the form established by the National Securities Market Commission and which was included in the management reports, which are incorporated both in the individual annual accounts of Telefónica and in the consolidated accounts of the consolidated group, both related to fiscal year 2018. In the aforementioned annual report on corporate governance, the company informs in detail about the following matters related to its corporate governance: the ownership structure of the company, the operating system of the general shareholders meeting, the managing structure of the company, the detail of the related party transactions and the intergroup transactions, the risk control and management that the company has established, the internal risk control and management system regarding the preparation process of financial information, and the follow-up of level of recommendations on corporate governance. This annual report on corporate governance was registered on the 21st of February 2019 at the National Securities Market Commission through the corresponding significant event, and is available on the website of the company and has been distributed to you at the entrance to the room. At this point, I will hand over to the chairman for him to speak about the corporate governance of the company and, in particular, on the extent to which the company fulfills the recommendations of the Good Governance Code. As set out in the annual report on corporate governance for financial year 2018, Telefónica meets practically all of the recommendations in the Code of Good Governance with the following provisos. The Board of Directors of Telefónica is convinced that the limit on the maximum number of votes that a single shareholder may cast, 10% of the total share capital, as stated in Article 26 of the company's bylaws, offers effective protection for the interests of minority shareholders, and so it should not be amended. This measure does not prevent takeover bids, but does give the company a lever to prevent coercive bids at insufficient prices. The size of the Telefónica Group up to this day and the variety of sectors in which it carries out its activity justify the number of 17 members on its board of directors. 3. Telefónica S.A. is one of the largest companies listed on the Spanish stock market by market capitalization and has shareholders with large holdings in absolute value terms, which means that in terms of proprietary directors, Telefónica cannot simply stick to strict proportionality when determining the composition of its board of directors. Fourthly, with respect to the participation structure of the different categories of directors, it should be pointed out that the percentage of independent directors is higher on the board of directors than on the executive committee, mainly due to the requalification in 2018 of one of the members of the executive committee, who became considered to be another external on having completed 12 years as a director of the company. The company has considered that this change in the classification of one of the members of the committee by the mere passage of time does not justify in and of itself the modification of the makeup of the executive committee. Fifth, the Committee of the Nominations, Compensation and Corporate Governance is a single body, and to date there has been no discussion of splitting it up on efficiency grounds. Sixth, likewise, the Audit and Control Committee and the Committee on Appointments and Remunerations Committee are chaired by independent directors. In determining the composition of the remaining board, Supervisory and Control Committee's external proprietary directors are incorporated to provide their technical knowledge and tangible experience. Seventh, as can be seen in the company's public information, the board members and directors in 2018 held significant stakes in the capital of Telefónica SA, which shows their commitment to Telefónica and their alignment with the company's goals. Additionally, the remunerations policy for directors includes the commitment of all the executive directors to maintain a minimum number of shares equivalent to 2 annuities of fixed gross remuneration during their tenure. Eighth, moreover, the Committee on Appointments and Remunerations and Good Governance has the power to propose to the Board of Directors the cancellation of bonus payments if performance criteria have not been met or if they have been paid based on data which consequently turns out to be inexact. Moreover, the company continues advancing in the trend of adjusting its compensations policy to the recommendations of the Good Governance Code. Ninth, finally, it should be noted that taking into account organizational and development motives, the company did not consider necessary to completely broadcast the prior annual general shareholders meeting live on its website. However, at last year's general shareholders meeting, the chairman's speech was streamed, and this year the meeting is being streamed. Secondly, it is appropriate to report on the annual report on remunerations of Telefónica's directors for the financial year 2018, the text of which has been made available to the shareholders from the date of the call, and which was drawn up and approved by the board of the company at its meeting on the 20th of February 2019 in accordance with the proposal made by the Appointments, Remunerations and Corporate Governance Committee. And finally, I would like to inform you that the full written text of the report, which the chairman will present to this general shareholders meeting, will be published on the website and made available to the shareholders. As for the vote, in order for public applications for proxy representation to be effective, please note that those board members who could find themselves in a potential conflict of interest with regard to the proposed resolutions being submitted to this general shareholders meeting, they will exercise their vote in accordance with the precise instructions of the shareholder they represent. If the shareholder being represented has not given precise instructions, or if the instructions given were ambiguous, then the board member will not exercise the right to vote on the shares represented, and it will be for the secretary to the general shareholders meeting to cast the vote for such shares. The shareholders wishing to vote against, blank, or abstain on any of the proposed resolutions on the agenda may state their wishes to the notary or the officials at the tables at the left-hand side of the room. Favorable votes to the proposed resolutions included in the agenda will be considered to be those of shareholders who do not expressly state their vote against, blank, or abstention to the notary. In terms of the proposed resolutions, in accordance with the regulations of the General Shareholders Meeting, it is not necessary to read the whole or summarized version of the proposed resolutions if the text of such proposals has been provided to the shareholders at the beginning of the General Assembly, as is the present case today. And so I will limit myself, in the interests of providing greater agility to this event, to expressing the most highlighted contents of the proposed resolutions. The complete text of these proposed resolutions, which is displayed on the screen in this room, will be included in the notary deed of the General Assembly. 1. Approval of the annual accounts and the individual and consolidated management reports, the consolidated non-financial information, and the management of the Board of Directors. 1.1. Approval of the annual accounts and the management report of both Telefónica SA and its consolidated group of companies corresponding to the financial year 2018. It is proposed to the shareholders at this general shareholders meeting to approve the individual annual accounts, the consolidated financial statements, and the management reports of Telefónica SA and its consolidated group of companies for fiscal year 2018, as finalized by the company's board of directors at its meeting of the 20th of February 2019. As you will see in the individual annual accounts, the balance sheet as of 31st of December 2018 reflects assets, liabilities, and shareholders' equity in the amount 85,844 million euros each, and the income statement as of the end of the fiscal year reports a profit of 3,014 million euros. In the consolidated financial statements, the balance sheet as of the 31st of December 2018 reflects assets, liabilities, and shareholders' equity in the amount of 114,047 million euros each, and the income statement of the fiscal year reports a profit allocated to the shareholders of Telefónica SA of 3,331 million euros. 1.2. Approval of the non-financial information statement of the consolidated group of companies. It is proposed to this general meeting of shareholders the approval of the non-financial information statement of the consolidated group of companies headed by Telefónica SA for the fiscal year 2018, included in the consolidated management report of Telefónica SA and its group of companies for said fiscal year. 1.3. Approval of the management of the Board of Directors. It is also proposed to approve the corporate management carried out by the Board of Directors of Telefónica Sociedad Anónima for fiscal year 2018. 2. Approval of the proposed allocation of the profit and losses. It is also proposed to approve the following proposal for the allocation of the profits and losses of Telefónica Sociedad Anónima for fiscal year 2018, allocating the profits obtained in the amount of 3,014,110,852 euros and 19 cents to voluntary reserves. 3. Shareholder compensation, distribution of dividends, charge to free reserves. It is proposed to approve a distribution of cash dividends with a charge to unrestricted reserves through the payment during 2019 of the fixed amount of 40 cents per share in 2 times. The first cash payment of 20 cents per share will be made on the 20th of June 2019. The second cash payment of 20 cents per share will be made on the 19th of December 2019. 4. Delegation of powers. It is proposed to the shareholders of this general shareholders meeting to authorize the executive chairman of the Board of Directors, the chief operating officer, the secretary of the Board of Directors, and the vice secretary of the Board of Directors, without prejudice to any powers delegated in the foregoing resolutions and to any powers granted to convert resolutions into a public instrument that may exist, in order for any of them acting severally to formalize and implement the preceding resolutions with authority to execute all such public or private documents as may be necessary or appropriate, including documents for purposes of interpretation, clarification, further development, supplementation, correction of errors, and curing of defects for full compliance therewith and for registration thereof to the extent mandatory with the commercial registry or any other public registry, as well as to deposit the financial statements of the company. 5. Consultative vote on the annual report on directors' remuneration. It is proposed to the shareholders at this general shareholders meeting to approve on an advisory basis the annual report on the remuneration of directors for fiscal year 2018, whose text has been made available to the shareholders along with the other documentation relating to the general shareholders meeting from the date of the call to the meeting. Finished with the reading of the proposed resolutions that will be submitted later for your approval, and after the projecting of a commemorative video of 95 years of Telefónica, Mr. Chairman will expose his report to the present general meeting.
The first light, we lit up with the sunrise, gets my heartbeat running wild when you're here by my side, and we'll dream out loud, take our chance, take it now.
Dear shareholders, just a few weeks ago, Telefónica, our company, celebrated its 95th birthday. In Gran Via in Madrid, when we began, Telefónica showed its vanguard spirit and this became the first skyscraper in Europe. And then the first transatlantic telephone call in history was made. Some of these phone calls show where we were at that time. In 1924, we had 40,000 copper kilometers, but now it's 40 times that distance. There was no 135 million instant messages now go back and forth. There was no mobile telephony, and only in Spain there's 80 million privileged people had a telephone. Now Telefónica offers services to more than 350 million customers in 16 countries. This was 95 years ago, and today, every 24 hours, Telefónica does more than 800 kilometers of fiber. 3 billion minutes of voice. It transports about 70 million chapters of your favorite series. It connects 300,000 additional people, some of them in the most remote points of the planet, like in Peru or in the Antarctic. Digital education is given to 9,000 students, and 1,000 hours of volunteer work is done. Today, 95 years later, we're amongst the top 10 companies in our sector. We also see our financial figures, which are very eloquent. Just to focus on 2018, our revenues are at 49 billion euros with an increase of 2.4%. The growth in revenues is accelerated in terms of operational results by 6.3%. This shows sustainable growth on the profitability of the company. Our net profit grows for the third consecutive year, 6.4% more than in 2017. The cash flow without spectrum consolidates its growth at over 5%. At 5.5 billion euros. And all of this has allowed us to reduce debt and offer an attractive dividend to our shareholders. Summing up, as I said here a year ago, we want to grow in revenues, and we are growing in revenues. We wanted to increase margins, and we're doing that. We will continue investing to have the best platforms, and we're doing that as well. So in short, we comply with what we say. And 2018 has been a year that really is in line with our 95 years of history. We are still growing in revenues and net profit, growing by 10%, and cash flow generation 2.6 times compared to 2018. These are data that allow us to confirm the financial objectives that we announced for 2018. Recently, I sent a letter where I talked about our vision for the company and the passionate future that we have in this company. It began with a Hemingway quote where at the crossroads, there are no signs. Years ago, we were at one of these crossroads, decisive crossroad for Telefónica, and we opted for accelerating a change that we had started years ago. And this transformation has converted our company into a technological company. We embarked upon this path when few dared to do so. We are accomplishing this transformation now, and we're closer to being the company that we aspire to be than what we proudly were. We're a technological company at the heart of the digital revolution because the driving force behind this is the connectivity that we sell. New intelligent connectivity on high-speed networks, 4G, fiber, and soon 5G. It's flexibly sure, virtualized, based on software and open architecture, and integrate artificial intelligence, the most advanced networks in Europe and Latin America. We are a technological company because on this connectivity, we offer the new digital services to residential customers, companies, that are carrying out their own digital transformation. Services like in cloud security, the Internet of Things, big data, 7 billion in revenues, which is like the revenues that come from Spotify or Dropbox. We're at the vanguard of the new technologies, and we're pioneers using artificial intelligence and the way we relate to customers. We have the first cognitive platforms at our customer service centers, and we're applying blockchain to manage the supply chain. We are a technological company because we're getting closer to the all-digital model with 65% of our processes which are already digitized. We're growing in My Movistar, and the online sales are growing by double digits. We've advanced in the personalization and contextualization of offer with advanced analytics, and now we have robots in most of our geographies, and all of this to improve the customer experience. It's not simple to renew the mechanics of a vehicle as it's running. As we're doing this, though, as we're picking up speed in our transformation. We're changing at the same time. We've picked up 9 million customers over the last several years, and the high-value customers. We have more broadband and customers with fiber than copper. Almost 50% of our customers are using 4G technology. We're changing while we're improving all of the financial figures and becoming a data company. Our traditional service, voice, is no longer the main source of our revenues, and data are now 56% of sales, and we're reaching margins which are a benchmark in this sector. We're changing an 83 billion since 2012 in investment for our platforms. It's a figure that's like the economy of the size of Puerto Rico. Investing at that rate has allowed us to be the leaders in fiber in Europe and Latin America, with almost 52 billion mobile units that are passed with fiber. It's not enough to say that you're looking to the future networks. We have to do it and maintain it, and this means investment. We're changing as we reduce debt substantially, 14 billion reduction since June 2016, both organically and through divestment of non-strategic assets. Remember that the sale of O2 in the UK that was blocked was a transaction of this size. 3 years later, we greatly reduced the debt, and we're at record levels of revenues. We changed while continuing our 0.4 dividend for shareholders, easily covered by our business, by our income. And we've done this when this economic situation was not so positive. We had to deal with the turbulence in the currency markets in Latin America and the UK. And lastly, we had to deal with the negative situation in the IBEX. In 2018, that was the year where Telefónica crossed the equator of its transformation, and now this transformation has strengthened us. Your company today is stronger, considerably stronger than it was 3 years ago, and we're convinced that the real value will be reflected in the share price. We are complying with our mission. We are changing things. And it's true that the transformation of a company, with 95 years of history and the size of Telefónica, requires time. And we have to clearly define our mission and strategy over the long term. Making our world more human by connecting people's lives. This is the real proposal of Telefónica, to make sure that people and the societies can benefit from the digital revolution and are not overwhelmed by it. So in our mission, we're building a technological company, not just for the next quarter or for the next 2 quarters. We're building a company for the next 20 or 30 years. When we work with that type of perspective, it's essential to comply certain requirements. First is the creation of a solid trust relationship with our stakeholders, beginning with our customers and based on their satisfaction. We've been recognized by Fortune for the third consecutive year as the telecom company that is most admired in Europe and one of the most highly admired in the world. But what is really important is that it's our customers who have expressed their level of satisfaction, record levels of satisfaction over the past couple of years. This trust that we should build also with our investors and with the society at large is reached with a management that's guided with respect for the values like protection of privacy and security or the controlled and ethical use of artificial intelligence. In Telefónica, we promote a charter of digital rights, a digital constitution, and we think that the new digital world should not mean fewer individual rights, which were established in the analogical world. The second requirement is inclusive and sustainable growth. Telefónica facilitates access to connectivity, excellent connectivity with the best technology, and takes a big step forward, like the initiatives to reduce the digital gap between where we have the internet for all, with 600,000 people in remote areas of Peru. For us, it's a priority to develop positive impact services with a positive impact on the environment, double-digit growth in this field. We've reduced our energy consumption in Europe and in Brazil by 100%, is now renewable energy. We've reduced gas emissions. We've already fulfilled our goal for 2020, and we've issued the first green bond in our sector. And thirdly, efficiency, where digitization is key. We expect to save 1 billion euros in the digitization of our services, and we're closing down our copper centers, and we are leaders in the sector in doing so. Efficiency is reflected in our asset management and return on capital employed. This has taken us to situations where we had to take tough decisions recently in our assets in Latin America. This was the right decision. It has allowed us to increase our profitability and reduce our debt. Trust, growth, efficiency depend on the human team that we have here. Our teams are increasingly prepared and have greater diversity and gender parity. 38% of our staff are women, and we have the objective of increasing this proportion over time. Companies that don't have this value of contribute to developing societies will end up disappearing. Telefónica's activity looks to society. It generates an impact of the GDP of more than 53 billion in the countries where we operate. It pays taxes of more than 10 billion euros, 21 euros of every 100 invoiced, and 1.1 direct and indirect jobs. This shows the magnitude of the social contribution of our company. In Telefónica, we are committed to the sustainable development goals of the United Nations. And this is not rhetoric. This is seen in what we do every day. And therefore, starting this year, in the variable remuneration of all of our team, we will have factors like the customer trust, societal trust, diversity, or contribution to the fight against climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, shareholders, as I pointed out, our history, almost 100 years, is one of adaptation to changes, and this has been accelerated over the last several years to completely transform Telefónica. It's a process that has made us a technological company. It's a journey where we've crossed the equator already, and we need to continue and accelerate in our change as technological changes are picking up speed as well. At the last general shareholders meeting and on other occasions, we talked about this importance of this technological wave. And I have to mention this again because it's vital to understand the world that is coming, to focus the company towards that future. just a year ago, and now we have the first autonomous cars. In 5 years, that will be normal, with more than 300 million cars are connected and 5 million autonomous vehicles. Medical know-how will be multiplied by 2 every 72 days, when it used to be every 3.5 years. 1 out of every 4 people will soon know their genome. Artificial intelligence is better than humans in diagnosing tumors, for example. Programming languages are not needed for machines and to communicate with machines anymore. And the machines in 2015 are more efficient than humans in recognizing objectives. In 2017, the same in recognizing voice. In 2018, they're better than the human brain in reading comprehension. These changes are accelerating. Machines will help us to do our homework, our children's homework, and substitute actors in Hollywood. They don't need programming anymore. They train each other, and they learn on their own. So maintaining a video conference on a high-speed train with friends, or augmented reality with maps, will be possible with 5G. The best surgeon in the world can operate on someone on the other end of the world. And in factories, the sensors and robots will be receive orders in real time. There'll be 40 petabytes per year or per day that will be traveling around the world. That will help cars to avoid obstacles. Our edge computing and so forth will be processing all of this information. 100 billion people and things will be connected in a few years. The data traffic will continue to grow exponentially, growing by 4 or even 5 times in mobile. Many of these things are happening now, and others will happen soon. But absolutely all of these things will go through our networks. The future will go through Telefónica's networks. The permanent transformation is a need and an opportunity towards even faster networks that are simple and with lower latency and much more intelligent networks that we are building. The history of Telefónica is a history of permanent change. This is a company that has been forged on change. And as Churchill said, the best thing to do is to change. And being perfect means changing frequently to lay out our fixed structure. We used to provide just voice. There are roots, voice service. At one point, though, we understood that this was going to be a scale business, and we took the daring decision to go outside of our borders, and we became a big multinational. And having done that, we incorporated diverse talent that enriched our company. And then broadband, and we took it to other levels. We saw the world of mobile, and we accepted the challenge of having both a fixed and mobile network. We were ahead of the tendencies in television, and we positioned ourselves in that area. We understood early that ultra broadband would be key, and we rolled the fiber out. We captured the world of platforms, and once again, we were ahead of the game. In all of the companies that on the stock market when Telefonica was there, only 5% are still there now. In the United States, it's less than 1/4 of the companies that are still there after 9 decades. So there's a paradox here. While people live longer, the life expectancy of companies is increasingly shorter. And the companies that do survive have an ability to change. If we've reached this point, it's because we knew how to change. Now, at the head of the company, we've had very different types of leaders, but at the crossroads, all of them selected the same path towards change. They could have been more conservative, which the markets may have been rewarded over the short term. But if they did that, our company wouldn't exist, or at least it wouldn't have the size and leadership it has now. Now we're at a crossroads again, and the waves of opportunity will come fast again. And connectivity offers a huge opportunity to grow towards artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things, and we're ready to face that. There's going to be a fourth wave from the connectivity, which is going to even be more relevant. The history of Telefónica is a history of adaptation and staying ahead of change. We cannot limit ourselves to being the best in the class. We have to change to be even in a better class. Telefónica, after 100 years, will be a company with fiber and 5G networks that will be at the vanguard of connectivity. We'll be a pioneer company in simplification, efficiency, and closing our legacy networks. A company with 100% digitized systems in real time, focused 100% on the customer. We're going to be a company that's a leader in the creation and distribution of products and digital services of our own and from third parties. A company that has a deeply intelligent network and response to customers through artificial intelligence. We're going to be a company which is absolutely full of the values of the new digital world. So summing up, we will be a company in a leadership role to comply to meet its 100th birthday. It may sound, or on behalf of the whole professional team that forms part of Telefónica, I'd like to thank you for the trust that you deposit in us. But really, it's this genuine feeling that we have to move the company forward. Over the last 3 years, we've made headway in complying with the recommendations and best practice in corporate governance. We've increased the independence of our board. We've reduced the number of board members that would increase the diversity of our board, and these advances are being recognized by the main market agents. We've also tried to maintain a more direct relationship with each one of you. And you've received letters, personal letters, in the meetings that we've had, and other initiatives from the shareholders' office, all to reinforce our links with the real owners of this company. Today, I wanted to announce another step in this direction. Starting in July, the shareholders of Telefónica, who are customers of the company, will have a different program with important advantages, including you will have personalized attention and all of your consultations will be personally monitored. Ladies and gentlemen, shareholders, I hope that I've transferred the conviction to you that your company, our company, is in a privileged position during these exceptional technological changes. We are Telefónica, we are your company. So be sure that we'll be able to capture all of these opportunities. We will, again, comply, and we'll do this supporting ourselves on the platforms that we've built and that we've strengthened over the last several years, and based also on the pioneer spirit that describes our almost 100-year history. Thank you very much to all of you.
The definite data in terms of attendance has been drawn up by an external company from Telefónica, the Indra SA, which has performed review and analysis of the attendance cards and proxies, which are also available to those shareholders wishing to review them, and which gives us the final data with the following result. The following are the final results. 4,525 shares present, owners of 53,506,640 shares. 42,097 shareholders represented, owners of 2,784,171,448 shares. Total people represented or present 46,622 shareholders, owners of 2,837,678,088 shares, of which they represent 54.65% of the share capital of the company. We now turn to the speeches of the shareholders who have requested it. I give the floor to the secretary, whom I instruct to order and moderate the speeches. I request the shareholders who have requested to speak to facilitate the development of the meeting, out of respect for the rest of the shareholders present at it, and taking into account the the experience of previous years and the high number of participants, to limit the duration of the exposure of their speeches not exceeding 5 minutes in the duration. To this end, after the said 5 minutes have elapsed, the intervention exceeds that duration, the shareholders will be informed that their turn has ended, giving way to the next shareholder. I also remind you that this committee may limit the speeches where their subject matter is not included in the agenda, does not relate to the information accessible to the public provided by the company to the National Securities Market Commission since the celebration of the last general meeting on the 8th of June 2018, nor on the basis of the auditor's reports is sufficiently debated or hinders the progress of the shareholders' meeting. Any requested information or clarifications deemed admissible will be provided during the meeting if possible, and an answer will be provided to the questions and issues raised also to the extent possible. Any pertinent requests for information received from the shareholders that cannot be dealt with at the meeting itself will be answered in writing within 7 days of the end of the meeting. Mr. Pedro López Martín has the floor.
Muy buenos días.
A very good morning to you. First of all, I would like to begin my speech, which will be very brief, by congratulating you. I think that in the last 3 years, thanks to the management of all of you and the contribution of Telefónica's employees, that the company has been made better with a greater value, a company which, in short, has recovered growth at all levels, in the number of customers, its revenues, in the generation of cash flow, and in short, we have the figures before us as proof of this. And in short, I believe that the debt level has been reduced, and this has contributed to future growth and also remuneration of shareholders. And as I said at the beginning of my presentation, I'd like to convey my congratulations to all of you with all sincerity. Now, my question is as follows. I believe that the progress that has been made has not been reflected in the evolution of the share price in the last few months. And I'd like to know what, in your opinion, are the keys to improving this situation and for the share price to reflect the improvement in the fundamentals of Telefónica. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes. Mr. José María Soria Gómez has the floor. Good morning. Above all, good morning, Mr. Payete. It's a pleasure to meet you on the screen because according to the makeup of this room, there are first and second class citizens here, and I think that that's not a very positive. I'm a shareholder from the first IPO, and I've come to this shareholders meeting. This is the first time I've come to the AGM. I can't say the same as the previous speaker. Quite the contrary. According to what you have pointed out, we are the best. Well, I think we should look at reality. In the 8 months before you became chairman, in June of 2016, the share price was at 13 euros. When you joined in April, it was at 10 euros. The management that you have described and that has affected all shareholders has brought about a drop in our net worth of 42% since 2016. And since you arrived, of 25%. And I believe that something is wrong. Something is very wrong. And what is wrong is something I'm going to tell you about that happened 3 or 4 days ago. On the 28th of May, I went to the offices to understand the details on my invoice. And you know what they said to me? That they couldn't see me until the 3rd of June, 7 or 8 days later. A company can't work with those timelines, Mr. Payete. That's not good at all. I think there are many employees, but very bad employees, many of them. We'd need to create more loyalty amongst them and to ensure, because I think the company is a good company. I think it's an excellent company, but I think that you are very bad workers in the company. And I'm going to conclude because you already know everything. I think that technologically speaking, according to you, you're very good. But in administrative terms, you're very poor. Out of 48 billion in revenues, only a profit of 3 billion means that something is wrong out there. You yourselves have recognized the fact that you've had to get rid of 500 employees because of fraud. Take that fraud because tackle that fraud because a lot of money is lost that way, and it's shareholders' money. And I'm going to say something else. You talked about the dividend. When you arrived, it was at 80 cents, but before that, it was at 1, 1.2, and 1.3. This dividend business, you'd be best to get rid of it because you know better than anyone that on the day you pay out the dividend, it is discounted from the share price, so it becomes null and void, and that you get 0.2 deducted, and we receive 0.16, and that's about it. So please get your act together, and those gentlemen. Please let them learn, and let's hope the share price will become 12, 13, 14, or 15 euros. I think Telefónica is great, but that you are all very poor in comparison. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mr. Soria. Mr. José Luis Col Ávila has the floor now. Hello, good morning. I'm José Luis Col Ávila, currently retired, and I very proudly was an employee of Telefónica for 20-something years. Quite simply, I wanted to make 2 comments. As my colleague who spoke a moment ago said, I have shares for which I paid 36 euros. Currently, they are worth 7. I'm going to read a paragraph from the book on economics when I studied economics. The financial objective of a company is to maximize the wealth of its shareholders by linking them to it, or what is the same is to maximize the share price. I wanted to ask 2 questions. When I read in the press about the high salaries of the top management, that is all of you, and I remember exactly what the figures were that Mr. Alerta took away with him, I asked myself whether, in reality, you are complying with this requirement that I've just quoted from this book on economics. Do you comply with the fact that you're trying to maximize the profits of the company and therefore the distribution of dividends, which at the end of the day is our profitability? And one last comment or question even. Personally, I get the feeling that marketing is not as good as it should be and as good as Telefónica deserves it to be. We are continuously bombarded with offers from for mobile phone users. They offer you fibers, a new telephone, a new tariff. But I don't remember having had Telefónica call me up in the last few months or years to offer me an alternative to what I already have. And I think that in the press, even in the press, I can't find any advertisements of the services that Telefónica offers. Mr. Payete has made a very nice speech, but the marketing doesn't reflect what he said. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Thanks very much, Mr. Cole. Now, Jorge Arro Diaz has the floor. Thanks very much. Good morning, Chairman, all the members of the board, shareholders, and everyone else here. First of all, Chairman, congratulations for your speech and for your commitment with the company. My question for you is something that affects all of us, specifically how you see the political and economic situation of Spain after the recent general elections. Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Mr. Aro. Now, Rafael Miralles Ponce has the floor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, shareholders, board members, and public in general. I've come here as a customer of Telefónica for more than 40 years, a shareholder, and the representative of ADICAI on behalf of small shareholders, savers. I've come to this meeting on behalf of ADICAI representing these savers to look at these results. In terms of the results for 2018, Telefónica shows profits of more than 3 billion euros. But we have to see that mentioned. The question is on what part of these profits has been unfair enrichment compared to from the customers with the rising cost of Movistar Fusión. This service has increased its price, and in July it's going to go up again. This service, as I said, is a service that it's pressuring customers. We're giving services that the customers don't want, and that can't be an excuse to raise the prices for customers. This type of practice in Telefónica, they don't listen to the sanctions that they receive. They're not affected by the sanctions they received for these types of practices. In 2016, there was fines that were upheld by the courts, and they thought that this was cheaper because revenues from these price hikes would more than cover the fines. Now, with respect to these results of the 3.9 billion in profits, what part of that is obtained from not adhering to the rules of competition? The competition court has put a 3 billion fine on Telefónica for not complying with competition rules, for not allowing their broadband network to be used. Now, this failure to comply with the competition is hurting Spanish consumers that have the right to select their operator on an equal footing and equal competition. Since April 2017, when the share price went up over 10 euros per share, the trend since then has been downward until 7.15 per share. The shareholders are concerned and ask how much we are really appreciated in Telefónica, and the remuneration of the chairman of 1.9 million euros and 1.6 million for some of the board members will go up in 2019 by that variable, and more than 3 million for the chairman and 2.4 million for the CEO if the objectives are met at 100%. So what principles of remuneration are these? Where share prices go, when share prices are going down, it had to be the competition authorities that had to change the names and logo types that are and regulate the tariffs. And in terms of the share price, the authorities or you have to remember that reputation is based on the opinion of customers, and you should be treating customers in a better way for the benefit of the company. Don't forget that Telefónica, after those Matildes that were offered in the 1960s, has grown exponentially, and today it's the shareholders and the customers, the ones that are bearing the burden of the tariffs and the cost of your service. Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Mr. Miralles. Now, Miguel Izquierdo Blasco has the floor. Mr. Chairman, ladies, board members, and shareholders, my name is Miguel Izquierda, and I'm speaking on behalf of a trade union. Mr. Payete, once again, we come to this GSM to communicate to you and to the shareholders in general the problems of our workers. We're the ones that make it possible for this company to continue obtaining multi-million in profits, and that you can continue increasing your million euro salaries. This year, there's the accelerated dismantling taking place that you're carrying out about a company that was built on your profits. This country that has grown and maintained with the hard work of many people, with the effort of many workers. And in my trade union, we have been working hard I'm going to ask you to please, the sound on the microphone is not, somebody turn it down, please. So hundreds of jobs have been lost, and there's been, many workers have been put in a very precarious position to and well, the salaries of the top directors are rising. There's that. Remember your incentive plan that you implemented for 100 directors for a huge amount of money, and this is it's embarrassing for the rest of the workers. And this is one of the pillars of the destruction of employment. And for years, This has been done systematically in bringing down companies in the form of redundancy plans and we would call this transformation that so there's now fewer than 16,000 workers when we used to be more than 75,000 workers in the past. This deterioration in our situation is felt in Madrid, Barcelona, and all the major cities, and even more in smaller cities, and puts the feasibility of the service in general at risk. Increasingly, we're seeing the outsourcing of work to collaborating companies. Now, these subcontracts and their labor and social conditions of these subcontracts are completely precarious. Workers need to be autonomous workers in many of these cases. So these types of situations are the main cause of the current terrible situation of this social security system in Spain. And this creates this terrible situation for workers. So this great technology is doing nothing for job posts. At this last stage of the dismantling the company, we can list the following milestones. You've outsourced our social provision with Antares. It used to be, or the capitalization of this company rose with the insurance fund, the almost 90 million euros constituted exclusively with the money from the contributions of workers. Also, you've sold part of our data processing centers, as like you did with the underwater cable, international communications, or the base stations for mobile telephony. Over the last several months, with digital television has gone to another company, and even in the media we saw the announcement of the possible sale of the optic fiber network. This was discussed at the board, although later they said, or they denied it, and it seemed to be comparable to the Antares decision. And they talk about the continuous outsourcing of other operations with the implementation of forced transfers and this is causing a lot of problems. The external companies are taking more and more of these job posts, very precarious job posts, with terrible social and working conditions. Together with this situation, we have to do more work with lower salaries, and it's very hard to conciliate family and work life. So we want more jobs in the territories to guarantee the future of workers in dignified conditions. In 2015, there was the first with the agreement that was signed. This was not a good agreement, and the trade unions that do not agree with the company are shunned, and this is anti-democratic. Since then, it's the bureaucracy of the major trade unions that have negotiated the agreement. And this was an agreement that was going back in time, where workers were losing rights. In Telefónica Spain, Telefónica Mobile, and Telefónica Solutions. In this collective agreement, these clauses, the situation of workers under this collective agreement are much worse than they used to be. And it's very difficult to conciliate work and family life. This was only supposed to be applied in those areas where these measures needed to be applied, but now it's not only applied in the provinces, but also in Madrid, where it was not supposed to affect the workers in Madrid, but now it does. And this problem, the origin of this problem is clear, as we've denounced for years now from our organization, and that is the business policy of systematically destroying employment, the first result of which is fewer workers to deal with the same amount of work. This destruction of employment means that those that are still working have to work much harder. So more than 60% of the staff now has a divided workday. And also thanks to this agreement, in many provinces they've had to close work centers. And another thing that the company is doing is making workers that work in any of the three companies are called on to carry out diverse activities and not the activity that they're necessarily prepared to do. So this goes against the rights of workers. And it makes no sense. And this is not what we would consider responsible negotiation. We're just trying to dominate the staff in the three companies. And as I said in past years, with these worse labor and working conditions, and the workers, so some of the workers who have recently joined the company have gone to other companies where the conditions are quite a bit better. There's flagrant discrimination with young people recently coming into the company. We also have seen in the press, even just yesterday, since you've become chairman, Telefónica has fired 490 people for corruption. We hope that these initiatives are accompanied by others so that Telefónica does not become an elephant cemetery for ex-politicians with huge salaries. And many of them are still around Telefónica, these ex-politicians. We were at this stage of my talk, this is where I was interrupted last year. I don't know if that bothers you when you're interrupted when you're making a speech. But we don't like that. Today, more than ever, we're looking at the importance of having a public company to offer the service of telecommunications, not in the hands of speculators and delinquents who enrich themselves from the workers and the citizens of this country. We are your working class trade union, and where we want to spread wealth around. And with this unemployment that we have, this is what we need now, is a public company. We need stable jobs, and we need to put an end to the precarious types of work that we have. And we need to add more workers to the staff to provide better service. All of this should be accompanied by with real respect for trade union plurality. You need to be a socially respectful company with the rights of workers. And the trade union, and respecting all of the trade unions. The only fight that is lost is the fight that you drop out of, and we're going to continue to fight, Mr. Chairman and board members. Every year, we know that many times you don't listen to our complaints, but we will continue to inform you of them. Your huge salaries, incentive plans, multi-million salaries, while you cut the social and pay benefits of your workers. We need the creation of. Please finish up. I just have 1 minute left, says the speaker. Creation of stable employment, quality employment to reduce the unemployment of young people so that young people don't have to move out of Spain to find a job. And no more destruction of employment. Put an end to the precariousness of the situation of workers in this country that are being exploited by companies, the company that you are running to make yourselves richer. Put an end to outsourcing to give much better, higher quality service to your customers. So we want more jobs to offer better services. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and board members and shareholders for your patience in listening to us, and the working class will continue to fight. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, señor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Izquierdo. Mr. José Margalejo has the floor.
Señor presidente.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary, board members, shareholders present. Yet another year, I have attended the AGM representing Confredetel and my colleagues and family members who have delegated their proxy and me and their vote on the items on the agenda. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you personally for the wonderful job that you have done at the head of the company and for the excellent dissemination on the management and the future of this company that you've contributed to the business field. Through one of my sons, I know that your participation at the meeting of the launch project organized by ADEM on the 28th in the Reina Sofia, Valencia, took place. He was very pleased with what he heard from you. Now, coming to talk about this subject, I must convey to you how satisfied I am because of the evolution of those first contacts, which through the work done for shareholders, I trust that the future work will confirm the hope that you have created in us and that we'll be able to count on your personal help to unblock with the administration, the terrible situation of assets in mutual funds. because people who are retired have seen their pensions reduced by 40%, even though they've paid into it for 40 years. Once this administration and custody costs have been resolved with the BBVA, many of my colleagues insist on the fact that something similar has to be achieved with other banking entities or institutions. In terms of the items on the agenda, I can say there's a favorable vote on our behalf for all this, although what would be corresponding to the dividend, we'd actually prefer to see an increase which may not prejudice the future of the company, but would help out our family economies. I will give this to the notary, and I'd like a copy of this. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Mr. Margalejo. Ms. Maria Cebrián has the floor. Good morning. I've noticed in a very positive manner that the company continues to improve by pushing forward those initiatives towards strengthening ties with shareholders. And you have just announced a new program for shareholders, which are customers of the company. Could you list these? Thank you very much.
Gracias, señora Gabrieli. Tiene la palabra don.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hans Martin Bullmann has the floor.
Chairman, fellow shareholders, even when cost-cutting reached out the translation of this AGM, I am not yet possible to speak you in Spanish. I'm so sorry. My name is Hans Martin Bullmann. It's a little bit difficult, this mic. My name is Hans Martin Bullmann. I'm representing 1,607,309 shares on behalf of VIP, Association of Institutional Shareholders. Our chairman told us, not today, but our chairman told us about the last figures of Telefónica. The first quarter results shows a significant improvement. The only problem is that our chief executive officer did not communicate this to the capital market. Share price has only one direction, southeast, and nothing else. What are you planning to do better, to make a better share price, when you are telling us that the company is a fine company? You moved busy with share price, but you did not change the place. I cannot show you, for you are too far away, and there is no video, but I fear you know this. Let me come to 2 or 3 challenges. After a decelerated integration for the 2014 merger in E+ in Germany, the network now in this area reaches out 70 to 80% of the consumers. But you have to make better. Otherwise, you get a punishment. What are you planning to do there? Are you still investing in LTE, in 4G, or do you try to get it by 5G? Is the cooperation with the cable merger in those days who's perhaps happening? Vodafone and Unity Media a chance to get a better, easier way to a better broadband network. We are in auction in Germany of frequencies. That's nearly 3 months. And the price is very high. How do you try to compensate and to finance this? I do not very well understand Spanish, but perhaps you told us before, Mr. Chairman, that when Telefónica had the birthday of 100 years, we will see and show 300 million cars autonomously on the street. Is this a chance for Telefónica? Then please give us the figures in revenue, in EBIT, and in cash flow, and not only in nice colors. Communicate this to the capital market. Brazil is a very important part of the world for us, with a very good margin, even increasing in the last 90 days. Brazil is 1/5 of our revenue, so a big stake from the dividend. The global economy is poor, and even the Brazil's economy is slowing down. We are investing very high, and the capex is increasing in Brazil. Are you happy with the results in Brazil, or what are you doing to make a better situation? Proactive, and give us your expectations. Telefónica is a service provider. A service provider needs technique, but the basic is human. So please communicate to your staff, to our employees, the gratefulness of the shareholders for 40-cent dividend. Globally, tell them and communicate it not only in Spanish, but in all the languages needed. I tried to understand what you told us before. A Compañía de Voce transferred to a Compañía de Tecnología. I hope I pronounce it a little bit Spanish. And you've tried to acelerar nuestra transformación, la relación más directa con accionistas. Here are your shareholders, and I will try to give you a help. In 5 years, and most of you in the office are still working, take a simple target. For 100 years, make 100 cents dividend. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martin.
Tiene la palabra don Luis Álvarez Rodríguez.
Mr. Luis Álvarez Rodríguez has the floor. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, directors, ladies and gentlemen, shareholders. Year after year, now 12 years ago, the association that I represent, the elderly group in Telefónica, has made itself present at this AGM, the company where we have worked all these years. With our effort and dedication, we've contributed to its growth and prestige. I apologize if I speak about this with great pride, because last month, the elderly group in Telefónica had its 25th anniversary, and there's been a continuous existence of this organization, and it is of great importance, especially if we explain the social task that we try to carry out. We always talk about our activity focusing on three axes. We have awareness and want to continue to be active in being part of society. And with the Spanish Confederation of Elderly Organizations, the State Council for Elderly People, user-friendly cities, etc. Inactivity is not good, and so within our association, we generate, without tiring, activities that hope to continue our active and healthy lives with IT rooms to reduce the gap, memory workshops, walking, trips, etc. And finally, an association such as ours should be socially involved with a wide volunteers base. In our case, this works closely with the Telefónica Foundation, but we try to attempt that this does not remain just in theory, but should become realities, clear realities. And so our provincial organizations that make up our association foster and execute on a yearly basis 250 projects, which are carried out covering some of the concepts that I have listed beforehand. Reality is that all of this activity carried out by our elderly group at Telefónica means that in the world of associations for elderly people, that we are a well-known organization, highly valued, as something that shows the concern that Telefónica has in this field. Mr. Chairman, that is the reason as to why we express our satisfaction and contribute to the social fund in Telefónica, contributing like this to the value of the company. And this shows our level of commitment. Congratulations for the results that have been obtained.
Muchas gracias, señor Álvarez.
Thanks very much, Mr. Alvarez.
La palabra, don Camilo Candel.
Camilo Candel now has the floor. Yeah, I have to. Good day to you. First of all, I'd like to thank the chairman and all of the directors for the work that they've done. I've seen, however, that the commercial offer of the last several months in Spain things have changed. Can you explain what are the most important changes announced and the focus of the commercial strategy in the current competitive situation in Spain? Thank you. Thanks very much, Mr. Candel. Now that the questions have concluded, we're going to try to answer these questions based on these. We're going to try to answer these questions, grouping them as much as we can. So we're going to group these in two main categories: those that have to do with the operation of the company. I'm going to give the floor to the CEO for that, and then I'll respond to those questions on strategy or vision for the future of the company. So I'll give you the floor now to our CEO. Thanks very much. In terms of the number three from Mr. José Luis Colle de Avila, and his question on the commercial offer in Spain, I would like to say that we have the most important fiber network in Europe and 4G network and the best television, and the focus of our offer is to continue improving all of our services. At the end of 2018, we launched the O2 brand for a segment that are not interested in television. Fusión continues to be the best product in terms of price quality and continues to evolve with Netflix and mobile lines in the basic package. Also, we're continuing to work in consolidating new functionalities and improvements like Aura with our cognitive intelligence. In terms of marketing activity, Movistar offers customers the best offers using television campaigns, online campaigns, and SMS campaigns, email, and so forth. Today, we are, for example, communicating on TV a new Movistar Car service, and we have about 10 million communications through SMS, MMS, Movistar TV, and notifications in the Movistar app. In any case, we take note of your comment because we always want to improve. In terms of question number 5 from Rafael Miralles Ponce, there are 3 elements. First, in respect to your question on the price rise of Movistar Fusión, I can say that Telefónica, as other operators, has adapted prices to in some of its products as the services have improved. And this is a commercial measure and legally justified measure and is duly communicated to customers, and they have the possibility of cutting off the service without any cost, as the telecommunications law requires. Now, the update of the price in 2015 of Fusión has been supported by judgments, many court judgments in Spain, and over the last quarters, our growing preference for customers for differential quality service. They've stuck with us despite higher tariffs. Now, here I would like to take advantage of your question to say the telco sector has been deflationary over the last several years. Just look at the IPC and the specific rise in prices of telecoms. Since 2002, inflation has gone up 40%, but telecoms have gone down by 19%. Now, if we look at the period from 2012, the trend is CPI 8%, and telecommunications negative 6%. So the services for our customers have improved significantly, and prices have fallen significantly. Now, following with external data, the regulator says that in the price used to be 149 10 years ago for communications. Now, that figure is 92 euros, a 38% decline. And the quality of the service, it not only has not gone down, but rather has exponentially improved. So the services that we offer our customers have improved significantly, while the prices have fallen also significantly. For example, the base product of television to mobile phones used to cost 269 euros, 102 in 2012, and now it costs 65 euros. Now, in terms of your second question about the fine for having rolled out optic fiber in areas that were considered not viable, that sanction will be appealed. And in terms of your comment on the opinion of customers, in 2018, an important effort was made in Spain to improve customer satisfaction. And we've achieved, first of all, maintain leadership in the market in customer satisfaction in 2018. And we have, in the percentage terms, and we have one-third higher satisfied customers than the competition. Despite that, we'll continue to work hard to improve the quality of our service. Now, in terms of question number 6 from Mr. Miguel Izquierdo Blasco and the different issues mentioned. First, in terms of the remuneration of board members, in Telefónica, remuneration is similar to comparable companies, and this is public information, and it's in the annual accounts. The remuneration policy is in consonance with their dedication and responsibility and should be in line with the strategy and objectives of the company. In terms of your comments on employment, we are reasonably comfortable with our current staff in a context of revenue growth and internal training in new skills. Over the next several days, after the recent trade union elections, we'll start again with our collective bargaining. In terms of the sale of assets, we don't need to sell assets at any price to decrease debt, but we do look at the opportunities when sales fit our strategy and working in markets where we can provide a more complete service to our customers and obtain greater profitability on capital employed, especially the sale of Antares, Catalana Occidente, and the collective policies of the Telefónica Group is provided better service to employees, and this was the main requirement, both in terms of medical treatment. They should be the same or better than those existing before the sale. In terms of corruption, Telefónica has a solid ethical code and has been strengthening its compliance program with all of the laws and applicable regulations. Lastly, in terms of trade union relations, we do not agree with you. The multiple We've created jobs, and we have been working with young people to meet the new needs of the company. Scholarship programs, participation of young people with disabilities, for example, and the innovation and the Now You, the Order 2 program shows our commitment to women, their visibility, and the empowerment and increasing of the presence of women in our sector. In terms of the former agreement, it was a before and after, and positive in terms of labor relations and the leadership of the company. We don't agree with your evaluation of the working conditions of our employees. We're a benchmark in this sector in terms of the buying power and the conciliation measures for personal, family, and labor life, and also in terms of social benefits. And lastly, in terms of adaptation of timetables, this was one of the most important measures that was implemented in conciliating personal and labor work, and doing everything all of the decisions with the consensus of workers and compliance with the legal and all legal obligations. In terms of question number 11, Mr. Camilo Candel Trujillo, he talked about commercial strategy and the most important new commercial things. In terms of Movistar strategy in Spain, we're trying to improve the products that we sell with the demands of customers, and it's each user then decides which best meets their needs. In other words, increasingly, we're providing more and better services to customers and with more advanced networks, and this has meant a huge investment on our part. In this context, Movistar continues to develop its more strategy, and the customers that also for customers who have only mobile or only broadband. However, customers can freely choose anything that they want without any type of penalization. In 2018, Fusión is going to have the most complete offer in the market, including Netflix, and with O2 we have our convergent offer of only communications and with the differential in price and quality. We have Aura, Movistar Plus, Movistar Home, Smart Wi-Fi, and new capacities like high definition to consolidate our leadership in television. In terms of novelties, or the most important novelties this year, we have Fusión Total as of June 2018 have more mobile data, 8 more in each, multi-room for television, and new premium services, premium customer care services with personal treatment, advice for customers, and preferential access just for 10 euros more per month. All of the Fusión customers will have an advantageous solution for broadband connection in their second homes associated to their Fusión package. The price could be between 15 euros a month up to 30 euros per month for Fusión Zero. Fixed broadband customers and convergent customers will have symmetrical speed for just 3 additional euros. And mobile contracts that are not convergent will have more mobile data, 1 or 5 gigabytes for 1 or 5 euros per month. So we're improving services, additional service, improving the perception and satisfaction of our customers, and eventually we're updating prices as well. And lastly, from my side, in reference to question number 9, Mr. Heinz-Martin Bullmann, in terms of expectations, business expectations in Brazil, and the question on the network in Germany. In Brazil, in 2018, we had excellent results both on the commercial side and financial side, and the growth in value and strategy more meant a year-on-year 0.3% increase, despite the impact of regulation and the fall of voice. OIBDA grew by 5.6%, thanks to lower operational costs for the 3rd consecutive year, thanks to the digitization and synergies, reaching in the 4th quarter the biggest organic margin in history in Brazil of 39.1%. In 2019, we also began on a positive note with the acceleration of the growth in operational revenues by 1.7% and reduction of 3.1% in OIBDA with an expansion year-on-year of the margin of 0.5 percentage points. For 2019-2020, we expect to accelerate revenue growth, sustain the growth in margin, maintaining the growth in EBITDA, and investing 24 billion reais and 215 million in the fiber program. In terms of Germany, we've improved significantly our structure, our fixed network structure, thanks to an agreement with another company in the sector that allows us wholesale access to cable through cooperation over the long term. The agreement supplements existing agreements on infrastructure and is subject to the finalization of the acquisition of Unity Media by Vodafone, which is currently being reviewed by the European Commission. Telefónica Deutschland is expanding significantly its offer in fixed network at national level with attractive products over and above the Vector projects VDSL that are available at 250 megabits per second. In the future, we will be able to supply services up to 24 million homes. And in the future, we'll be able to provide services up to 24 million homes in cable in Germany with attractive fixed network products with higher speeds. And also in Germany, our networks are prepared for the future. We've rolled out the latest technology of networks in the last several years, and these efforts are being reflected in a positive sense in the most recent tests on the network. We're building the most extensive and modern network in Germany. We're focused on optimizing and expanding LTE practically in all of the national territory and even in the least populated areas. By the end of the year, we hope to reach extensive coverage in 4G We're also rolling out fiber, preparing for 5G to connect with fiber by 2022. More than 90% of these sites in urban areas and 25% of the sites in rural areas. So our fixed and mobile infrastructure in Germany is ready for the future. Thanks very much, Angel. I'm going to answer now the questions having to do with strategy and the share price.
Now, putting together the presentations from the three shareholders on the evolution of the share, I want to point out that in Telefónica, many positive things have happened, and we're not happy with the evolution of the share price, but it doesn't only have to do with the operational side of behavior of the company. The assessment from the telecommunications market has an effect. It's one of the biggest markets in Europe and third in the world, and it's growing, and we're growing our basic management parameters, but we're within the telecommunications sector, and that sector has, for the second year running, seen a very adverse performance in the stock markets. In the last year, the sector has had the worst relative performance, 13% down. In the last year, the sector has also seen a weak performance. And when people ask why, when investors are asked, they show fear towards high investments in the future and also uncertain regulations and the price of our products and the deployment of networks. This year, in fact, the main element is the uncertainty because of the auction of spectrum in Germany and the implications that that may have on the cash of the company. And also a company that has a spectacular presence in Latin America of leadership, but in emerging markets, these countries have been penalized in the last few years by the stock markets. Today, it is practically impossible to hold a leadership position like Telefónica has in Latin America. The markets are not valuing this because of the high volatility levels in those markets, in emerging markets. The situation in important companies in Latin America has created uncertainty, and that also has negatively affected our share price. In addition, we have a very strong operation in UK at record levels in terms of revenues, and it is the best mobile operator in the United Kingdom because it has the lowest churn of customers. It is the company that customers prefer. But uncertainty created about Brexit and the currency has affected us negatively. Despite the good operational results, this has not been reflected in the value because of the uncertainty in the economy. And finally, Telefónica is one of the bigger stocks on the IBEX 35, which lost 15% last year. So we're not exempt from that effect. So we can participate in the IBEX, but we have been affected by what is happening around us in capital markets. In 2019, we're outperforming the sector slightly, and the consensus of analysts is revising the target price of Telefónica upwards. It is 8.8 euros per share at the moment, so there's a potential for revaluation of 22% versus the current share price. This is data from yesterday, the 6th of May. So what I can say to you is that the stock market says one thing one day. That is not in our control. But what is under our control is the management in the company. And I've tried to show in our discourse and presentation, and the facts speak for themselves, that the company is stronger today than it was 3 years ago. It's stronger because it has higher value customers. It's more relevant for its customers because we have the best networks which are prepared for the future, fiber networks, 4G networks, and it is stronger because the financial and operating trends of the company are strengthening. So this is why I want to send shareholders a message of gratitude for their understanding and trust placed in us, and a message of trust in the future. As I said in my presentation, the future of all this process of artificial intelligence and all the technologies that feed into each other goes through our networks, and our networks are prepared. And I'm convinced of the fact that this will be reflected in the share price. As for the question from Mr. Jorge Aros in terms of the economic and political situation in Spain, allow me to provide some information and data, because I think that this will help us to understand why we feel so positive about the future in our country. For this reason, we have to look at what the company has done in the last 40 years. The transformation in the last 40 years has been quite spectacular. It has been the best time for economic and social development in the whole of our history. And I'm going to provide you with some data which backs this statement up. We have been able in the last 40 years to multiply by 15 the per capita income in Spain. The United Kingdom needed 118 years for this. We did it in 140. And in 40 years, we created a GDP equivalent to Holland and Denmark together. We doubled the active population and almost 7 million women joined the labor market. In social matters and social development, the development has been spectacular. Health spending per capita has multiplied by 13, and infant mortality is one of the lowest in Europe, and life expectancy in Spain has increased to be in the first position in the world. And spending on education per capita has increased by 14 times, and the number of universities has multiplied by 8. And many of our companies, and Telefónica itself, has become benchmarks on a global scale. We have infrastructures of a global nature. According to the World Economic Forum, we are doing very well. We are pioneers, and there's more fiber in Spain than in the United Kingdom, Germany, Italy, and France put together. This process has significantly improved the credibility we have as a country. This is a great company to invest in. And in this respect, I want to say that according to the recent report published by the OECD, we're one of the few countries that will maintain that growth in the next few years. And the forecast from international analysts for this year has not changed in the last 6 months almost. And Telefónica holds a privileged position. Telefónica represents directly or indirectly 1.4% of GDP in Spain and generates more than 150,000 direct jobs and indirect jobs. We contribute directly to the public budget with 3 billion. We recycle 97% of waste, and we have a network of almost 40,000 volunteers. And in addition, we are very much committed to the future of our country because we believe that for Spain, it is a wonderful opportunity, that digital revolution that is transforming everything. Spain has done its homework and is prepared. And if you allow me to say, I'd go as far as to say that it is prepared to take advantage of this huge opportunity, which is the digital revolution. And for this, the only thing we ask for is institutional political stability. We have to see this opportunity as being a historic opportunity. This situation is the first time in history where Spain, with a technological history, with technological revolution, is capturing it here. There's a deployment of railways under the average in Europe, and we were way behind the average in the European Union. But now Spain is in 3rd place in the world, according to the OECD, in fiber deployment. It's as if the Industrial Revolution had caught Spain with 80% of its land covered by railways and a steam engine in each company. So Telefónica is not a political subject, but it is a very relevant economic subject. And institutional stability is essential for our development. So for us, what we're interested in is public good. If things go well for Spain, things will go well for Telefónica too. We're convinced of the fact that our country paces up to a historic moment, and the recent elections, when one looks at the results of the elections and compare it to other countries, Spain is an oasis of stability within Europe. With regards to the question from Mr. Ponce, as for the remuneration of the president or the chairman and the managing director, according to the remunerations report and accounts, the remuneration is similar to the previous year, and in fact it has, in the case of the chairman, been frozen for the past few years. In the case of the managing director, his appointment took place in July 2017, and it was fair to update his conditions. But we are similar to the average. Our other questions have been already answered. In terms of the question from Mr. José María Soria Gómez, the share price has reiterated our vision. But again, I want to repeat that this company today is a lot stronger today than 5-6 years ago because of decisions that were taken back then. decisions on transformation of Telefónica, and which, in my opinion, is the most advanced in the telecommunications sector. And this is why I can confirm that we have passed the equator in that transformation process. And as for the comment on the room, we take note of this comment. We have tried to make the AGM more agile, improve the conditions of speakers, and we wanted to ensure that shareholders would feel that they were able to participate if they wished to. As for Mr. Margalejo's presentation, thank you very much for your words. I enjoyed the meeting we held in Valencia, and I think that we can do many things together. And I truly think that we will be able to improve on some of those points you've mentioned. You've had a key role in the almost 100 years in our history, and the management team feels proud of the work that has been carried out for this company. As I said a few minutes ago, we always have the will to improve. There's always room for improvement, and therefore I can guarantee that we will do everything possible to take good note of your suggestions and to make progress. And I'm grateful for your favorable vote and your trust in us. In terms of the question from Ana Maria Gabriel Febrián on the programs for shareholders who are customers of the company. In the last few years, we have tried in the shareholders' office to have a more direct contact that goes outside of the AGM, and therefore we improved the links we have with shareholders, which are 1.3 true owners of shares in our company. And this is why I've tried to send letters explaining the situation in the company on a regular basis throughout the year. And I've tried to maintain a personal, direct, and constant, transparent, and agile communication with them, and to convey what direction the company is moving in, and things that we consider may be of your interest, relevant facts, quarterly results, etc. And we think that the Acción Telefónica magazine provides this information, and all the information is on our website. Also, communiques are sent to almost 6,000 shareholders, a figure 3 times greater than in 2018. And I'd invite all those shareholders who wish to receive this information on a regular basis for them to give us your contact details, and we'd only be too happy to send you all the information. All you have to do is register on the website of the company or contact our shareholders office. This is the second year we have held a yearly shareholders meeting with the management team in Telefónica, and on each occasion we have met with 150 shareholders. And through the office, we are traveling to the main cities in our country in order to hold meetings there. We visited 11 provinces, and 180 shareholders have attended in total. And in terms of the holding of this AGM, and to facilitate participation in it, we have enlarged or increased the channels for communication, forms, documentation, protection, etc. And we're looking to hold informative assemblies where shareholders can participate to deal with those matters that have not been satisfied through the documentation we provided. And as for the new program I mentioned in my presentation for shareholders in Telefónica who are customers of the company, this service will offer customized care with a customized follow-up. And every time you contact through Movistar to the 1004 number, movistar.es, or through the Mi Movistar app, you will be dealt with in a straightforward, centralized, and customized manner. And if you have any doubts in terms of the devices connected to our network, configuration of smartphone, computers, consoles, you will have professional help at your disposal, even if your device belongs to another company. And you will live unique experiences and get discounts and winter sports, programs, premieres, and other such things. And in terms of the speech by Mr. Luis Álvarez Rodríguez, which we are very fond of and we greatly admire because of the great work he does and the whole association. Thank you very much for your words yet another year. And I'd like to say that for Telefónica, it's a great satisfaction, and it makes us very proud to have associations such as yours that we've celebrated together the 25th anniversary. Your contribution to improve the society in which we live, but also to improve Telefónica through all the activities that you mentioned. But I'd like to underline your participation in the volunteers program in our company. or foundation. It is a great example for us. In Telefónica, our mission is to make our world more human, connecting the lives of people. And the work that is carried out through your association helps us a great deal to move in this direction. I'd like to again express my gratitude. Count on us for anything that we could do in order to improve the relationship with your association. And I'd like to just add a question from Mr. Woodman about Brazil. The position that a company has in Brazil is quite spectacular. Brazil is one of the biggest economies in the world, and when you forecast the growth of the population and the size of the economy in the future, Brazil is one of the countries that is promising most growth. And the position of Telefónica in Brazil is irreplicable, cannot be copied. Telefónica represents 1.07% of GDP in Brazil, and it generates more than 580,000 direct and indirect jobs. We contribute directly to the public budget with 3.9 million euros, and 100% of energy that we produce, or that we consume rather, in Brazil is renewable. We also have one of the greatest volunteering projects in our company in Brazil, and we are totally committed with the future of the company. We're deploying fiber, latest generation networks, and the return on capital employed is improving in Brazil. As Angel Villa said, our managing director, the margins in Brazil are at historically high values. The team is doing a great job in Brazil, and we think that the fundamentals of the economy are healthy. And I'm going to provide you some information on this. Brazil has one of the biggest reserves of foreign exchange in the world, foreign currency in the world, and Brazil has obtained or taken out or moved people from the working classes to the middle class. And so internal consumption is very relevant in Brazil now. So we're convinced of the fact that if we put all these things together in the future, then we will be sitting on the digital revolution, and Brazil is clearly a country where we are fortunate to have the presence that we have there. And now, once we've ended the presentations of the shareholders, we will put to the vote the proposed resolutions. The Secretary has the floor. It is a pleasure to inform that with the votes that have come from the proxy cards and remote voting cards received prior to this meeting, and regardless of the votes against the abstentions, if any, cast by the shareholders attending this meeting in the manner indicated above, there is a sufficient majority in each of the items on the agenda to approve all the proposals for resolutions formulated by the Board of Directors submitted to this meeting, so that they are approved each and every one of the items on the agenda. Without prejudice to the foregoing, the definitive voting data shall be published on the company's corporate website. The chairman, the notary will sign the minutes of this general shareholders meeting, complying with all other customary legal requirements. Those shareholders wishing to read the minutes may, in a few days, request at Telefónica's office of the shareholder that a photocopy of the notarized minutes of the general shareholders meeting be delivered or sent to them. Thank you very much, shareholders. The meeting is adjourned.